We're here to be on a team and perform for the school.
It's definitely a huge challenge. It's hard. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty hard.
And they're engaged and highly involved in other activities on campus.
We're held to the same standard of every student here.
If you don't think being a student athlete is a job, you're nuts.
Through the years now, the NCAA beginning to recognize the time demands placed on student athletes and really working with the institutions of the NCAA to come up with a fair set of guidelines that I think does provide some good framework for how much time student athletes should be spending within their sport programs. We recognize in most of our sports, especially in season, the NCAA mandates no more than 20 hours in terms of athletically related activities. So we already know our student athletes are pretty busy. You add those 20 hours, then you add the academic components and everything else. I mean, I came up as a Division III student athlete. Went to a small private school, played Division I athletics there, and certainly the time demands placed on me as a student athlete were much different than those that I've come to recognize are placed on Division I student athletes.
It just kind of depends on the year as to how much time I require of these athletes. Obviously when we're in season, we're going 5-6 days a week with either practice, games, or travel, so there is a little bit more time commitment. And they have to be able to balance that with their academics.
At the NCAA, their top priority is to have student athletes earn their degrees. And so they do put academic standards on their student athletes to make sure that they're here for the right reasons. To start with a GPA, they require that student athletes be in good academic standing. Now that might be different at different schools, but here at NKU, good academic standing means that you're not on academic probation or academic warning.
It was extremely difficult to adapt to at first. My other teammate and I at the time, we were struggling so bad we thought about transferring, we thought about quitting, and we seriously thought about it because it was so demanding, it was so challenging. So I just remember freshman year, we would sit down on my couch in my dorm and just talk about, is it worth it to stay here? Should we quit? Should we go somewhere else? Honestly, it is a job by the time you get to college with it, and it's a huge commitment, and that balancing with trying to figure out what we're going to do for our education in college and what we're going to do for jobs. I mean, that's two different worlds, but we have to keep them together because that's what being a student athlete is.
I think it takes a big toll on us because as a student athlete, we have in our mind that we are here to compete for the school and succeed as an athlete and academically. I think we put so much more pressure on ourselves than people think that we put on ourselves. And so that's in our back of our mind, and we just want to do good, and we want to play well, and we want to do well for the school, but we also want to get good grades, and just everything that's going on in our mind is coming all out at once. It's tough. Like everything, there's so much that goes on mentally that people don't know about just because we don't share that, because we don't want to say, oh, we can't handle this. Like, who wants to admit as a student athlete that you can't handle something? Like, I don't want to do that. It was hard for me to admit that I struggled sophomore year, and that was one semester of my college career.
I think one of the biggest things is expectation. So, I mean, you have a lot of external pressure that the average student's not going to have. So you have a pressure to perform. Obviously, if you're recruited by NKU or any other university, goes for all student athletes, then you have an expectation to perform, and a lot of times that's in exchange for a scholarship. So it is like a full-time job. Your academic performance will suffer just based off time if you don't know how to manage and handle that.
It varies by sport. A lot of people think that oftentimes that I think men's basketball or football players miss a lot of class times. In reality, football probably misses the fewest amount of class days because typically they're playing on a Saturday, they're leaving on a Friday. Now that varies depending on television sometimes, but that's kind of the standard.
So there is, it doesn't seem like the travel's awful, but it is because there's a difference to it. Some of the trips might be shorter in length and shorter in you bus up and bus back in the same day, or bus up the night before, bus back right after the game. So no, I think the commitment's still very, very tough time-wise for everybody.
I'd say it's impossible to make up for that material that you miss in a class. It just really is. We stress with our students, make sure you find somebody in that class that you know, that you can get notes from. But I think in general that's really hard because you're reading somebody else's notes. I know a lot of professors are willing to meet with our student athletes and go through what they talked about in class, but it is really hard to make up for that material that you missed during class. There's just, there's no way.
There have been some semesters, especially when we're in season in the fall, where you obviously miss more because you're required to go and play, the matches.
I've missed quite a bit of class for athletic performances and practices, but the athletics department will work well with you to make sure that you can schedule your classes before a lot of the students schedule their classes, so you're able to get a good schedule, and you can a lot of times schedule your classes around your practices. So that's kind of a nice thing to do, but at the same time you kind of feel obligated to make sure you're not missing practices, making sure you're going to all of the athletic events. And yeah, it is kind of nice, but at the same time it's kind of a challenge. So.
I just feel like I'm constantly making up work or trying to get caught up, and especially in the falls when we were really, really busy, and it just felt like everything was, because we were gone for 4 straight weeks, and so we missed 4 straight Monday and Tuesdays, and that's hard. Only going to certain classes 1 day a week for a whole entire month, it's so hard to stay up in tune with everything, and especially when you got tests, when you miss tests, not many professors give makeup tests, then you got to take them early, so then you got to study earlier, but then you got to study the stuff that you missed even earlier, so it's a constant game of catching up and trying to stay caught up, so it's tough.
Every year we have, let's just say, 70 student athletes, freshman student athletes come here. And our goal is really, your hope is they come here 70 as freshmen and they leave the same 70 as seniors. I mean, that would be ideal. And so you'd like to think that the mix is perfect for all of them. Unfortunately, it isn't always. Sometimes some of the demands that we have on student athletes are too much for some. Frankly, maybe for others, it's not enough. They want something even bigger.
I mean, I'm lucky that I had you to talk to and just some other people on my team because you guys understood what I was going through. And I think the fact that some student athletes don't have that while they're going through college, and so they put so much more pressure on themselves and they try to take everything on for themselves, and it overtakes them and they just get lost and they can't do it and they just break down, and it just takes a big toll on them, and mentally, emotionally, physically, and sometimes it just ends worst case scenario.
When you hear, situations of individuals that go through things like that and go so far sometimes as to even taking their own lives, that's extremely alarming because, you're also a student athlete. And I mean, you may be at a different place where you don't feel, as helpless as they did, as, just torn up inside. I think a lot of people struggle with different things and not everyone considers individual circumstances.
Stress at a low level is manageable, but once you get to a really high level, you're functioning at college athlete level, which for a lot of sports is near pro, and academically you're learning a lot of concepts at a really in-depth level. So the pressure's there to perform, and after a while, if you're have a lot of pressure from different sources, it can be a lot to manage, and you have to find outlets to relieve that stress, or else it may be a detriment to your performance overall.
So I guess what I think is that other schools will offer different resources depending on where you're at, and so it's kind of hard to say overall if all schools have that, but I want to say that they do in some way, shape, or form. Like, it may not be this like top 10 school that has all these like athlete-specific counselors or whatever. Like, other schools can't afford that. NAIA schools, can't afford that. So I think like having even just your coach as your support, having other athletes even, like if it can't be administration, I think that's significant, and I think that probably exists in other schools as well.
And I think it's really important that student athletes find that person on their team or in the athletic department, a mentor, another student, someone that they can talk to, just so people can listen. I don't think people really know how powerful just being listened to can be, and just having someone understand what you're going through.
People come here with a good understanding that they, yes, get that opportunity to compete Division I, but they're also going to have enough academic support from an advising standpoint, institutional standpoint, from class sizes, professors, and everything, that they can be successful academically too.
One great thing that I enjoy about college athletics is the team atmosphere. So you're surrounded by a lot of people who are doing the same sport, have similar interests, but they're also, they got to the same place because they did the same things. And, a lot of times it takes a certain person to be a student athlete at the college level. And you have a lot of dedicated, passionate, motivated people all in one room, all on one course, all on one field. And it really is nice to be able to build off each other and have that positive energy.
I think, honestly, like, as a result of the fact that I've stayed all these years, like, it's true. Like, I've noticed that, when you push yourself hard like that, not only do you benefit from it by learning how to endure more, but, your body thanks you by the end of it. You're more fit, you're more, I think, ready to go, and definitely more confident as a result.
It was a great experience, and, I think it helped me grow as a person with all the adversity that I faced in and outside of golf. Definitely good experience, and I'm glad that I played golf, and it's given me a lot of good things to look forward to.